Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Sirach. And just as fat is separated from meat, so was David separated from the sons of Israel. He played with lions as if with lambs, and he acted similarly with bears as if they were lambs of the flock in his youth. Did he not kill the giant and take away the reproach from his people? By lifting up his hand with a stone and a sling, he threw down the boasting of Goliath. For he called upon the Almighty Lord, and he swore with his right hand to take away the mighty man of war, and to exalt the horn of his people. So he glorified him amid 10,000, and he praised him with the blessings of the Lord, by offering him a crown of glory. For he crushed the enemies on every side, and he eradicated his adversaries, the Philistines, even to this day. He broke their horn even for all time. In all his works he gave thanks to the Holy One, to the Most High, with words of glory. With all his heart he praised the Lord, and he loved God, who made him and who gave him power against his enemies. And he appointed singers to stand opposite the altar, and by their voices he provided sweet music. And he provided beauty for the celebrations, and he gave order to the times, even until the end of his life, so that they would praise the holy name of the Lord and magnify the sanctity of God from early morning. The Lord purged his sins, and he exalted his horn forever, and he gave him the covenant of the kingdom and a throne of glory in Israel.
When the world closes in and every voice demands its price, there is a rock that does not move. God's way is unerring. The promise of the Lord is fire tried, a shield to all who take refuge, a name not worn away by fear. Blessed be God, my salvation. Blessed be God, my salvation. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock. Extolled be God, my Savior. I will proclaim you among the nations. I will sing praise beyond the blade. Blessed be God, my salvation. Blessed be God, my salvation. You who gave victory to your king, who showed kindness to your anointed, to David and his sons forever, when crowns were earned with blood and trust. Some trade truth to save their name. Some silence the voice that wounds their pride. Some kill the prophet table to keep the room from turning cold. But those who lose what cannot save them find what cannot be taken. Blessed be God, my salvation, not my comfort, not my power, not the praise of passing crowds. Blessed be God, my salvation. Blessed be God, my salvation.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. And King Herod heard of it, for his name had become well known, and he said, John the Baptist has risen again from the dead, and because of this, miracles are at work in him. But others were saying, because it is Elijah. Still others were saying, because he is a prophet, like one of the prophets. When Herod had heard it, he said, John whom I beheaded, the same has risen again from the dead. For Herod himself had sent to capture John, and had chained him in prison, because of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, for he had married her. For John was saying to Herod, It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Now Herodias was devising treachery against him, and she wanted to kill him, but she was unable. For Herod was apprehensive of John, knowing him to be a just and holy man, and so he guarded him. And he heard that he was accomplishing many things, and so he listened to him willingly. And when an opportune time had arrived, Herod held a feast on his birthday, with the leaders and the tribunes and the first rulers of Galilee. And when the daughter of the same Herodias had entered and danced and pleased Herod, along with those who were at table with him, the king said to the girl, Request from me whatever you want, and I will give it to you. And he swore to her, Anything that you request I will give to you, even up to half my kingdom. And when she had gone out, she said to her mother, What shall I request? But her mother said, The head of John the Baptist. And immediately, when she had entered with haste to the king, she petitioned him, saying, I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And the king was greatly saddened, but because of his oath, and because of those who were sitting with him at table, he was not willing to disappoint her. So having sent an executioner, he instructed that his head be brought on a platter, and he beheaded him in prison, and he brought his head on a platter. And he gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and took his body, and they placed it in a tomb. Join us for today's reflection. What would you say if you knew the spears were coming? St. Paul Miki knew. He was tied to a cross on a hill overlooking Nagasaki, iron clamps around his wrists and throat, watching the executioners work their way down the row of condemned men, 26 crosses. The spearmen started at opposite ends, thrusting upward through the ribs of each victim, and Paul Miki could count how many minutes he had left by how many bodies still hung between him and the blades. So he preached. He told the crowd he was Japanese, not some foreign infiltrator. He told them he was a Jesuit, and he was dying because he taught the doctrine of Christ. He told them he forgave the emperor and everyone who wanted him dead, and then the spears found him. The youngest martyr that day was St. Louis Ibaraki, 12 years old. The sheriff in charge actually tried to save him, offered to make the boy his personal servant if he would just stop being a Christian. Louis smiled and said it made no sense to trade a life that never ends for one that finishes soon. They tied him to the wood anyway, and witnesses said he kept smiling until the end. Here is the thing about this story. These 26 people had been force-marched 600 miles through winter, from Kyoto to Nagasaki, beaten and mocked the whole way. The government wanted to break them publicly, wanted them to recant in front of the crowds, so everyone would see that this foreign religion crumbles under pressure. They sang hymns instead. Now hold that image and look at Herod in today's gospel. Herod Antipas threw himself a birthday party. Lords, military commanders, all the important people of Galilee reclining at his table, and when his stepdaughter danced for the guests, he got carried away and made a ridiculous promise. Ask me for anything, up to half my kingdom. She asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Herod did not want to do it. Mark tells us something fascinating about this man. He actually feared John, knew the prophet was righteous and holy, even protected him. When John preached, Herod listened, and something in those words unsettled him in a way he could not shake. The most powerful man in Galilee was drawn to a prisoner in chains because the prisoner had something Herod desperately lacked. But Herodias, his illegal wife, nursed her grudge. John had publicly called out their marriage as unlawful, which it was. She wanted him dead, and she had just been handed the perfect opportunity. So Herod faced a choice. He could break his foolish oath and look weak in front of his guests, or he could murder a prophet to save face. He chose his reputation. Think about that. The man with soldiers and fortresses and the power of life and death was so enslaved to what other people thought of him that he killed an innocent man rather than endure a few minutes of social awkwardness. Herod was the most powerful person at that banquet and simultaneously the weakest person in the room. John lost his head. Herod lost something worse. Today's first reading praises David as the great hero of Israel, giant killer, Philistine crusher, the man whose military victories united the tribes and established Jerusalem. But notice what Ben Sirach emphasizes most. David praised the Most High with all his heart. He loved the one who made him. He arranged the feasts and established singers before the altar. He gave beauty to the festivals. David's real legacy was not the sword. It was worship. The psalm makes this explicit. God is the rock. God is the fortress. God trains hands for battle and gives victory to kings. David's strength was always borrowed strength, and David knew it. That is why he worshipped. Herod never learned this. He thought power meant control. He thought strength meant never backing down. And because he built his identity on what other people saw, he became a slave to their opinions. Paul Miki had nothing left. No army, no influence, no way to defend himself. The clamps held him in place and the spears were coming, and there was absolutely nothing he could do about any of it. And in that moment, he was freer than Herod had ever been in his life. When you stop trying to protect what cannot save you, something clarifies. The Martyrs of Nagasaki sang on the road to execution because they had already settled the question of whose opinion mattered. They were not performing for the crowds. They were not calculating what this would cost them. They had one audience, and that audience had already promised them everything that mattered. Herod killed a prophet because he could not bear to look foolish at dinner. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You are not likely to face a cross on a hillside, but you face smaller versions of Herod's choice constantly. The opinion you do not voice because it might cost you a friendship. The conviction you soften because the room disagrees. The worship you skip because it feels inconvenient or because someone might think you are taking this religion thing too seriously. We tell ourselves these are small compromises. Nobody dies, but something does die, a little at a time. The capacity for clarity, the freedom to speak what is true regardless of the cost, the muscle that would let us stand if the real test ever came. The martyrs of Japan were not superhuman. They were ordinary Christians who had practiced choosing God over comfort in 1,000 small moments. So when the big moment arrived, The choice was already made. 250 years after those 26 died on that hill, missionaries returned to Japan expecting to find Christianity completely erased. Instead, they discovered thousands of hidden believers around Nagasaki who had passed the faith down in secret, generation to generation, without a single priest for over 2 centuries. You cannot kill what you cannot own. Whose opinion has that kind of power over you? Whose disapproval could make you compromise what you know is true? That is the voice that owns you. And the only way to break free is to remember there is an audience of one whose approval already secured everything that matters. Paul Miki used his last breath to forgive and proclaim. The spears came anyway. And somehow, standing on that hill with nothing, he had more than Herod ever did. Blessed be God, my salvation.